Hey everybody, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, columnist Jeremy Price. Hey, check this out. See that? Goal over there? No nets. Check this one out.
No net down there either.
The nets are gone. They have been chopped up, cut up, put into hats, put into mouths, and
Trophies.
carried, and yeah,
Whatever.
they cut the nets here tonight.
The first time I've seen a net cutting after a win at Indiana.
You had to go there. You had to go there. On an otherwise convivial day here at Assembly Hall, Jeremy Price went there. No, actually, Tom Crean went there too. He walked in. Obviously, senior day. It's obviously a big celebration, a big to do, a big ceremony after the game, whatnot. And obviously today you had the net cutting. But it was funny. Tom Crean walked into the press room after the game and kind of poked a little fun at himself back about that 2013 game against Iowa State, saying, "Hey, sorry, thanks for your patience. Sorry this took so long, but hey, it beats 1:30 in the morning."
Yes.
But no, this was after. It almost feels like here. We're 6 hours after the initial tip-off.
Yeah.
The game, even from the very beginning, with everything else going on today, with the announcements of facilities, Indiana football had an open practice today. You just knew that this was going to be Indiana's really one last opportunity, or one true opportunity, to salute this team, these seniors, the Big Ten champs. And I don't know about you, Jeremy, but for me, going back early, long before Indiana beat Maryland, 80-62, the game almost felt secondary. And
Yeah.
that felt weird because, obviously Maryland was the preseason Big Ten favorites. You knew this was probably going to be a pretty competitive game. And really for a good 10 minutes, 12 minutes it was. But
long.
And then Indiana just really, it was as thorough a win, really, that we've seen here outside of, the Illinois-Ohio State games.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was the question. Really was, like you said, I mean, it was sort of a situation where it's set up that the game was almost going to be a secondary thing. The question, though, was, could the Hoosiers put that aside and make it the main thing for long enough not to let that be a problem? And out of the gates, there was sort of a little feeling out period, but it was like once we got about 7-8 minutes in, Indiana just kind of found that edge that it's been playing with for the last month and a half, 2 months,
Yeah.
really. And once they got on a roll and rolling as they do here, once again built a double-digit lead. I mean, you think about it, this team has built double-digit leads even against Purdue, Iowa, and now Maryland. The last 3 home games, maybe Nebraska was sprinkled in there. I don't know.
You can count Michigan State, too. They had a double-digit lead up in East
Even in
Lansing,
the
too.
East Lansing, yeah. I mean, this team's built double-digit leads against the best teams in this conference, some of the best teams in the nation. Now, holding that has not always worked out so well, but really just kind of picked up where they left off, and this time they kind of kept Maryland at arm's length. And I thought really this game was sort of telling of a lot of things about both these teams' seasons. Maryland is a team that you see just the vast potential and the talent, but it just doesn't seem to mesh together, whereas Indiana is maximizing the talent it has because it's meshed together.
Maryland is just like you said, both teams are just fascinating case examples of the different directions that can be found at this time of year. Maryland obviously heading in a very concerning direction for their program. Indiana, meanwhile, I think is taking as much momentum as they've frankly maybe ever had under Tom Crean into the postseason. Today was once again Yogi Ferrell with 17 points. Troy Williams was the good Troy Williams with 23 points before the game. Saluted for his 1,000 breaking the 1,000 point mark 2 weeks ago against Purdue. It was funny. I think Tom Crean said to him before the game, "Don't try to score the next 1,000 here today," but he sure tried and played
Maybe a little too hard out of the gate, but
Yeah.
once he got that out of his system.
Yeah, no, he definitely settled in well. And I think for a long stretch, too, I think Thomas Bryant, I'm not sure it's really reflected in the final box, but I think for a long stretch, and longer than this box score will ever tell you, outplayed his McDonald's All-American counterpart in Diamond Stone.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Bryant finishes with 8 points and 8 rebounds. I guess less so than the points. I mean, the points are nice with Bryant, but the rebounding really tells you how far he's come in terms of putting himself in the right position and becoming a factor in this game. I mean, a lot of talk over the recent weeks has been go back to that game in Durham against Duke and just sort of the mess that Indiana was after that game. Well, that was a game where Thomas Bryant had 0 rebounds. Today he has 8 against a Maryland front line that's as good as Indiana's seen, maybe outside of Purdue. Purdue's maybe the only other team that has a comparable or better front line. And Thomas Bryant's a factor on the boards, and he's a factor getting up and down the court. Now he's more comfortable handling the ball away from the basket, sort of pulling some of those other big guys out with him. He made another three today, something he's done sporadically over the last few weeks that's keeping defensive honest. And like you said, just basically his work ethic is what stands out to you when you watch him and Diamond Stone. I mean, Diamond Stone has such talent, but he just doesn't seem to have that drive, that motor that Thomas Bryant has. Yet another example of the difference between these two teams.
I'm not sure I'm allowed to reveal this yet. My all Big Ten choices, but I'm going to do it anyway. I voted Thomas Bryant Freshman of the Year. It was really between him and Ethan Happ, and obviously Ethan Happ had the redshirt year. But I just think everything Thomas Bryant's given this team, I mean, you can see it in the production, he leads the Big Ten in field goal percentage and everything he gives Indiana otherwise. I think that's worth rewarding. Certainly getting to this point. I mean, like you said, in contrast to Diamond Stone, there was one point Indiana had the basket, or the ball in transition, pushing it up around midcourt, and Rashid Suleiman's yelling at Diamond Stone, get back, get back, get back, and Indiana brings it down. I think ended with a dunk by Bryant, or maybe it was Williams. But there's a real contrast there in those two players, and I thought it showed today. Otherwise, though, and you talk about Bryant in that freshman class really headlining that class. This is once again another example of the guys like OG and Juwan and frankly Harrison Niga too. He had a really nice play midway through the first half. Once again, it's so cliche to say it, but these guys just play with so much heart, and especially in the case of Juwan Morgan, who was cleared to play today despite aggravating his shoulder injury Tuesday at Iowa. Unfortunately for him, another scary moment late in the game. He was doubled over in pain, could barely move. I think they actually popped his shoulder.
Yeah, it looked like they popped it back in on the court.
He was he may have been screaming in pain. He was very visible.
He was screaming inwardly, if not outwardly.
Yes, it was a very unsettling moment there. But yet again, here's a guy with bad shoulders, probably popped back in in the last couple days, and he's diving for loose balls. And like you said in your story, I mean, when you contrast the Maryland that we saw today with the Indiana we've seen today and in recent weeks, there's no real off switch right now, and I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, and for this day being all about the seniors, which we'll get to in a moment, those freshmen have really been sort of helped change the tenor of this team and the way this game goes. This game today was a perfect example. As soon as Morgan and Anunoby come in off the bench, you just see the defensive level of intensity pick up. It just picks up another level. The other team sort of gets in a little bit of a funk, and Indiana gets on a run, and that's no coincidence. Those guys have just done that all year, and they're playing with so much confidence and such a factor right now. And Morgan in particular, I mean, right now he's doing so many different things. Today he was guarding on the perimeter, whether it was Suleiman or Trimble or whoever, and he's so comfortable doing that on one possession and then battling a Diamond Stone in the post on the next possession. And then as his versatility offensively, at one point Indiana had the 5 forward lineup and Juwan Morgan's running the point. I have not seen that before, did not expect to see that often, but Tom Crean says that's something they work on, something they've planned for, and something that Morgan's comfortable with.
8 to 10 minutes in practice every day, Tom Crean says Juwan Morgan gets to run the one. They've been doing it really, he said, the last 2 weeks ever since Johnson went down against Purdue. They've set aside a few minutes during practice, I guess each practice, where Juwan can kind of function and kind of learn how to, read a defense, what he can take from it as the point guard. We'll see how that plays out, especially we'll see how he can recover over these next few days. The good thing for Indiana is they don't play until Friday afternoon, noon, at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in their opening game at the Big Ten tournament. Will face either Michigan or Northwestern. In the meantime, though, this was a day where it was all about just saluting the team, saluting the seniors. Just again, like I said earlier, it's a celebration of everything, and it was really interesting. I've always enjoyed listening to these senior speeches, and today there were some real poignant moments, and I think Nick Zeisloft really shed a very interesting light on this program and what went on behind the scenes in Maui when it seemed to be at one of the frankly many low points that this program has seen in the last 6 months. He was saying that Tom Crean pulled him aside in the locker room and said, "We got a lot of guys here who are playing at Indiana. They're not playing for Indiana." And he said that was a message that really sort of seemed to resonate over those next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this was an Indiana team that at that point was just a bunch of disparate pieces each kind of going their own way, trying to do their own thing, and sort of more reminiscent of the Maryland team we saw today. When that Indiana team was, there was sort of some infighting and bickering, and you could just tell that people weren't on the same page. And it seems like from that moment, things began to turn around. Obviously, it took some time. Obviously, there was the Duke loss, even the first half against Notre Dame when things were going horribly. But somehow this team sort of came around to the idea that it had to play for each other and for the name on the front of the jersey more so. And that's the biggest difference you see in this team now, is there's sort of that three musketeers, all one for all for one kind of mentality now with this team. And that's really what's carried it to this point. And it's, I guess, what makes it most gratifying, regardless of if you're a fan, media, whatever, is to see guys grow and mature. And that's what I like about a senior day like this, is if you look at a Yogi Ferrell and you look, if he'd have left after 2 years at Indiana, how would he be remembered? Well, he'd been remembered as somewhat of a disappointment, somewhat of a letdown, somewhat of a individualistic person who did some nice things individually but didn't accomplish a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. Now he's looked at in a completely different light because of what he's done as a senior in terms of his maturity, in terms of his leadership, and as a bonus, the results that this team's gotten on the court.
Absolutely, and I think Yogi may have had one of the all-time senior speech moments today. I'm not even sure.
I'm not sure where you're going with that.
If you haven't seen the senior speeches, search for them, watch them. It was quite a funny moment. Yogi Ferrell. I'm not going to go there.
Yes.
It was. I was sitting there. I was cracking up. I couldn't believe he went there, but he did, and it was funny. And it was just one of those cool. I don't know. You never know what you're going to get with these senior speeches. You really never know.
No.
And this year, I thought was really good. I mean, you had a lot of different stories to tell. Obviously, Jackson Tharp transitioning from the manager's role to a walk-on. Ryan Burton walking on here and juggling one hell of a course load while doing so. 18 credit hours is crazy. Max Bielfeldt, of course, I thought he gave an absolutely... Max is one of the more well-spoken guys on this team. Gave a great speech just right off the cuff. It was pretty good. Yeah. And Zeisloft and Farrell, too, had their moments as well. So search for those. In the meantime, we'll be following... I guess Big Ten awards are announced Monday night.
Monday night, yes.
So we'll know a little bit more about, I would think, Tom Crean will be Coach of the Year. We'll see what else happens. I'm guessing Denzel gets the Player of the Year nod. I think Bryant's got a shot at freshman. We'll see if he can overcome the Ethan Happ lobby. Otherwise, we will keep you updated this week. Friday, noon, Bankers Life Fieldhouse. We'll be there. See you guys.